Hi, my name is Kara Smith, and this is my presentation on the role of literacy in regards to gender and sexuality. Quick disclaimer, I do have 4 dogs and live next to an airport, so if we hear any weird, funky sounds, it's probably one of those 2 things. The objective of this lesson is to learn the importance of being literate in situations involving sexual orientation and gender. As future educators, it is extremely important that we create a loving and safe environment for our students. So I think it's really, really important, and you'll hear me say this a lot, it's crucial that you know how to understand your students and what needs to be done in order to understand your students in regards to their gender or sexual orientation, especially since a lot of us will be interacting with students at a time when they are just figuring that out, figuring themselves out. So in relation to Module 1, what is literacy? Literacy has been redefined as not just including written materials, but a variety of media. Being literate just doesn't mean being able to read, but it means being able to understand, being able to comprehend. Being literate in gender and sexuality leads to a more inclusive experience for everyone. As stated earlier, is one of our main jobs as teachers to create an inclusive space for our students. Module 2, relation to critical literacy. Critical literacy changes approaches depending on the situation in which a person finds themselves. Using critical thinking in every situation is the best way to make sure that everyone is receiving fair and equitable treatment. Equity is a super hot topic in education right now, so you want to do your best to make sure you are doing what you can to provide equitable education and equitable treatment for all of your students. In order to have critical thinking around literacy, one needs to keep an open mind, and this includes making sure that you are looking at people for every aspect of themselves. This includes taking their gender and sexuality into account and how situations might be affected by those. Particularly asking students, what pronouns they would like to be referred to in front of their parents, as some students are not out yet. You want to make sure that you are protecting your students' safety and that you are a safety net for them. For me as a kindergarten teacher, it's really important to me to make sure that I can create the best environment for them to thrive in safely and just to learn. Obviously, as someone who wants to be a kindergarten teacher, I won't be dealing with students who are older and might be experiencing more of an identity crisis, but there are students who know who they are from a very young age, and it is my job to make sure that they know that I am a safe place for them. Module 3, digital literacy. Digital literacy is defined as the ability to be adept at using digital platforms and technology. Not only do we need to know how to use technology in order to be literate, but we need to know how to use all of the apps and media that come with it. So that'll tie into later when we talk about media literacy. You need to know what you're using and how to use it, both. In order to create an inclusive space, it is important for teachers to understand online lingo around gender and sexuality. Students will say phrases or acronyms that may not make sense to many teachers, but we can do our best to be educated. I think this is especially important when it comes to not only acronyms for who a student is, but words that might be offensive. So you can make sure that, you're monitoring online chats in your classroom in a way that makes it an inclusive space for everybody. Not only that, but teachers need to be able to use tools that allow for students to express them by creating online spaces. Again, a lot has moved online since COVID-19, so creating safe spaces for students to interact is crucial to creating a safe environment, and I think that is really highlighted again by understanding what students are actually saying and not just seeing what they are saying. Module 4 is media literacy. Understanding the different types of media that your students are consuming and knowing how to create a safe environment with relatable content is an important step to creating a safe space. As adults, we are exposed to different types of TV, movie, and even ads than our students. Doing our best to keep in touch with some of the media that they are consuming is an excellent way to see what kind of role models they have and what places they might be lacking in diversity in their regular life. Knowing how and when students consume their media by being literate in different types of media. So being exposed to different news channels and medias that students' parents may be exposing them to is really crucial to understand what might be going on with them, and knowing that the things that children might be exposed to is going to be a big part of who they are and a big part of how you understand them. Module 5, Cultural Literacy. Being aware of what different cultures believe surrounding gender and sexuality is an important step to make sure that you are understanding what your students are going through. Some cultures have a much more open understanding to gender and sexuality than others. Understanding the repercussions of what it means to be a part of the LGBTQ+ community and different cultures helps you to be literate in the lives of your students. Some students may live in families with cultures that are not as open to the idea of them being LGBTQ+ as others. Knowing what it means to be a part of these cultures and understanding how they are a part of their students' lives is really important to making them feel loved and welcome. Like I mentioned earlier, knowing if they're out to their parents, if it's okay to use different pronouns for them or talk about their significant other is extremely important. And not only being literate in their home culture and in their life culture, but also in the LGBTQ+ culture as well. There is so much to learn and there's so much to know. So I think it's really important to not only be literate in culture in the typical sense, but in culture in a non-typical sense. Then key connections. Learning about different genders and sexualities and becoming literate in their lingo will help you create a safer environment for your students. Understanding not only who your students are, but what it means to be gay, bisexual, transgender, any part of the LGBTQ+ community makes your classroom all the more safe and relatable. If your students know that you're someone who understands who they are and knows who they are more likely to love your environment and love being in the school. And then here are the first two of my opportunities to learn more. This is the first one is a glossary of terms by the Human Rights Campaign. It can help increase your literacy in sex and gender. It's just a brief introduction with some major terms that you're going to hear throughout the LGBTQ+ community. The second one is an article from West Ed, and it's a great resource for statistical studies around LGBTQ+ students' experiences. Statistics in the article include how safe students feel of different LGBTQ+ denominations, and it also includes some anecdotes of teachers talking how to be supportive of LGBTQ+ students. And then this last one is the GLAAD Media Reference Guide. This is another set of terms that are very popular in the LGBT community, but not only the popular terms, it has super in-depth terms going into several of the different sexualities involved in the communities, and even some broader terms about what it goes into being each thing, like transitioning for transgender and that kind of thing. And I think it would be a great tool to keep on hand for teachers to look at so you can understand what students are talking about and maybe reference what students are saying. And then these are all my resources. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you had an amazing semester. And if you have any questions, I would love to talk about this more in depth about this topic with you. Thank you so much.